Can't hold on any longer. Chinese business owners are starting to sell off their machinery and flee. 80% of factories have shut down. Losing the US market means China has lost nearly everything. A revolution is drawing near. The emergence of gray organizations has alarmed the CCP, and Chinese society is like a volcano on the verge of eruption. China's economy is cancerous, with the CCP repeatedly misdiagnosing and mistreating it. Xi Jinping has become the destroyer of the nation. Is Xi Jinping's era crumbling? Rumors claim that Zhang Youxia has mobilized troops to seal off Zhongnanhai and pressure Xi to relinquish power. This year, many people will die, a mainland Chinese blogger bluntly stated, caused by various viruses. Welcome back to New Century, where facts matter and every story is told with integrity. Can't hold on any longer. Chinese business owners are starting to sell off their machinery and flee. 80% of factories have shut down. Losing the US market means China has lost nearly everything. In recent weeks, many Chinese social media users have posted a series of videos highlighting the severe effects of US tariffs on factories. A blogger lamented, "Today I'm in Panyu, Guangzhou. This large factory with over 100 employees has recalled all its vehicles. This is the factory that used to handle orders for Shein. The garment factory, with no orders to fulfill, has left workers feeling that earnings from a full day's work aren't even enough for basic necessities, and many see no reason to continue." "It's a strike," one worker declared in a video, revealing that the factory had no orders, couldn't pay wages, and workers had gone on strike. The boss reportedly loaded up goods and fled, while workers took materials as payment for unpaid wages. As more factories shut down, owners are starting to sell off their machinery and flee. One blogger noted, "These machines came from bankrupt factories all over the country, and some are even from large factories that were installed but never put into use. Equipment worth millions, even tens of millions, is now being treated like scrap at a warehouse in Chaishan, Dongguan. They're tearing down machines, but there are just too many." In key export hubs like Yiwu and Dongguan, several factories have temporarily laid off half their workforce and halted production for weeks. The Financial Times reported that due to Trump's tariffs, bookings for 20-foot standard containers, TEU on China-US routes, dropped 45% by mid-April compared to the same period last year. The Port of Los Angeles expects shipments to drop by a third starting in early May, and air freight demand is also declining. The New York Post pointed out that dozens of clothing factories in Guangzhou's Panyu district, known as Shein Village, have stopped production due to the U.S. canceling the $800 de minimis exemption for small packages, combined with the new tariffs. Many factories that supplied Shein are unable to shift their production lines and have no choice but to close. One YouTuber's analysis highlighted a harsh reality. In recent years, China has expanded exports to regions like Africa, Latin America, the Middle East, and Europe to reduce dependence on U.S. exports. However, export data shows that China's reliance on the U.S. remains high. According to the analysis, China's total exports in 2024 are expected to reach about $3.6 trillion, with $524.6 billion worth of goods directly exported to the U.S., accounting for roughly 15% of total exports. However, if we include transshipment exports through ASEAN, Canada, Mexico, and goods entering the U.S. in repackaged forms, the actual proportion of exports to the U.S. could exceed 20%, potentially reaching 25%. This means 1/4 of China's export goods go to the U.S. The YouTuber believes this reflects two structural realities. First, the U.S. is the only single market in the world with such massive and stable consumer demand. Second, China is currently the only country with such comprehensive and powerful manufacturing capabilities. Another YouTuber remarked that China's manufacturing industry has no future. In every industry, companies are cutting corners, claiming to save costs but in reality compromising on quality. Some products that used to be made with aluminum are now made with plastic. What used to be plastic is now made with paper. "There's nothing to do, just working early shifts day by day," the YouTuber said. The trade war this year has destroyed many small and medium-sized businesses. Almost no factory is working overtime. It's eerily quiet. Not only along the coast, but even in Nanjing. A large-scale wave of factory closures has been reported, leaving many people unemployed. April 29th marked 100 days since President Trump returned to the White House. On that morning, U.S. Treasury Secretary Bison attended a White House press briefing and discussed key issues such as trade talks and the U.S.-China tariff war. He emphasized that if the tariff war continues, China could soon lose 10 million jobs. The Chinese government claims that the unemployment rate in March 2025 was only 5.2%, but this figure is widely doubted. According to estimates from Goldman Sachs, around 10 million to 20 million Chinese workers are involved in businesses related to U.S. exports. In 2024, China's total urban workforce was about 473 million. U.S. economist Davy Junhuang stated that exports to the U.S. account for about one-third of China's total exports. Such high overcapacity could spread to other industries, particularly in the Pearl River Delta and Yangtze River Delta regions, including textiles, apparel, electronics assembly, and export packaging. This will affect the entire supply chain, including logistics and shipping, leading to the collapse of many small and medium-sized businesses, potentially resulting in 30 million to 35 million people losing their jobs. A revolution is drawing near. The emergence of gray organizations has alarmed the CCP, and Chinese society is like a volcano on the verge of eruption. With rising unemployment, a revolution is approaching, and China's crime rate is deteriorating further. In Hainan, people are still robbing others and stealing phones. One individual even stole a battery and pried open a lock. One vlogger warned that several issues will arise in 2025, when the economy is struggling and money is hard to earn. 3 professions will emerge. First, theft. Second, robbery. Third, fraud. This is considered a social pattern. The lower class will include 3 types of people. The first group, called the helpless ones, may lack education, skills, or knowledge. Unable to survive in society and with no moral constraints under the CCP, they resort to stealing, robbing, or scamming to survive. The second group consists of people who initially sought to gain without working. They've grown accustomed to cheating, scamming, and deceiving, and when they can't address their survival needs, they rely even more on these methods. The third group might have originally been middle class or former business owners or executives. With their businesses closed, they strive to maintain their current lifestyle, resorting to scams to secure investments and make money. The CCP has long claimed it would fight the tariff war to the end and not bow to the United States. Many commentators believe the CCP thinks it can withstand pressure due to its totalitarian system and the Chinese people's high tolerance, as they are willing to endure hardship for the cause. Australian legal scholar Yuan Hongbing recently revealed that a member of a CCP second-generation Red family, purged by Xi Jinping, disclosed internal details about how Xi is handling the tariff war. It is said that Xi instructed the entire CCP to restudy Mao's On Protracted War to address Trump's tariff war. Xi also suggested lowering tariffs on some goods to create internal conflicts in the U.S., employing both hard and soft tactics. Yuan Hongbing stated that the CCP is, after all, an evil regime that disregards the lives of its people. He noted that Xi Jinping's close ally, Kai Chi, supports the tariff war against the U.S. within the party, stating, "We survived the economic disaster of the 3 years of natural disasters, so what can't we overcome now?" The 3 years of natural disasters refers to the period between 1959 and 1961 during Mao Zedong's rule, a time of great turmoil. Yuan Hongbing argued that the 3 years of natural disasters was a scam. These years were a man-made catastrophe caused by Mao Zedong's policies, resulting in a famine that led to the loss of nearly 40 million lives. Yuan Hongbing remarked that if this level of unemployment occurred in other countries, society would collapse, potentially leading to a revolution. The Chinese people are no longer as isolated as they were in the 1950s, and they are much more aware now. This time, the CCP cannot manipulate the Chinese people as it did in the past. On April 25th, Chinese state media, the People's Daily, published an article discussing the party's leadership in youth movements and its control over youth work, calling for the entire party to unite, organize, and mobilize the youth as broadly as possible. Lai Rongwei, executive director of the Taiwan Inspiration Association, believes the CCP's article is linked to the current youth unemployment crisis. The CCP regime knows that the public struggles to put food on the table, creating signs of instability that they are finding hard to control. He stated that young people can't find jobs, so after graduation they either stay at home or wander the streets. The CCP fears that young people will either disengage from society or actively protest. Wang Jianxi, a researcher at Taiwan's Institute for National Defense and Security Research, believes that with rising unemployment, China's social stability will face severe challenges. Although the CCP has implemented various measures, if the situation persists, it could trigger a new version of the White Paper movement. At the end of 2022, widespread dissatisfaction with China's lockdown policies led to protests in several cities, primarily involving young people known as the White Paper movement. Chinese-American economist Li Hongqing noted that the CCP's fight-to-the-end rhetoric on tariffs is strikingly similar to the rhetoric from 3 years ago when they insisted on the unyielding zero-COVID policy. While the Chinese people are notably patient, they cannot tolerate one thing: not having food to eat. Students who graduated in recent years still can't find jobs, and this year 12 million more graduates are entering the job market, which will fuel social unrest. The public will eventually rise up. Australian legal scholar Yuan Hongbing recently revealed an internal document from China's Ministry of Public Security, sent to provincial and ministerial level officials in early April 2025. The document indicated that gray organizations, such as alumni associations, veteran groups, and migrant worker mutual aid groups, are emerging across the country, drawing the government's attention. Yuan Hongbing stated that these organizations reflect widespread dissatisfaction with the CCP's policies. The CCP fears that if the U.S.-China tariff war escalates and the economy continues to decline, these gray organizations could transform into political groups that pose a significant threat to social stability. China's economy is cancerous, with the CCP repeatedly misdiagnosing and mistreating it. Xi Jinping has become the destroyer of the nation. In recent years, the gradual slowdown of China's economic growth has become a widely acknowledged fact. Particularly during Xi Jinping's tenure, China's economic growth has been significantly lower than in previous administrations, marking a major turning point. The economic challenges facing China seem to be deepening, especially in the context of intense global competition, tariffs, and overcapacity. Are wholly Xi Jinping's economic policies truly effective? Commentator and prominent social media influencer Toronto Squareface reviews China's economic development over the past 5 years in 4 stages, exploring Xi Jinping's key decisions and their consequences. Let's delve into the details below. First stage: exposure of problems and the launch of the Common Prosperity Policy. Looking back to 2020, China faced growing economic challenges. Against this backdrop, Xi Jinping introduced the Common Prosperity Policy, aiming to address social inequality and unfair income distribution. In November 2020, the crackdown on Jack Ma and Ant Group became a landmark event of this policy, followed by aggressive measures to tackle the real estate bubble and regulate internet companies. These policies appeared designed to deflect social tensions, but in practice they failed to effectively alleviate economic difficulties. In economic theory, wealth disparity does not necessarily lead directly to insufficient consumption. While extreme inequality can impact societal purchasing power in some cases, the issue is far more complex than it appears. For instance, despite significant wealth gaps, the United States maintains strong consumption capacity, whereas countries like Japan and certain Nordic nations, with smaller wealth disparities, have long experienced sluggish consumption. These examples suggest that simply attributing consumption issues to excessive wealth gaps does not fully address the problem. Moreover, Xi Jinping's Common Prosperity Policy resembled an extreme form of struggle against the wealthy. forcing the rich to donate through crackdowns and pressure to achieve redistribution. This approach not only failed to resolve economic woes but also heightened social instability, particularly with the large-scale exodus of wealthy individuals and foreign capital. Second stage, pandemic recovery and short-term economic rebound. Starting in 2020, the global COVID-19 pandemic posed even greater challenges to China's economy. Despite the disruptions caused by the pandemic, it paradoxically provided a temporary respite for China's economy in some respects. China implemented a strict zero-COVID policy, using large-scale lockdowns to curb the virus's spread. This allowed non-locked-down regions to continue production, driving a rapid increase in foreign trade and offsetting some economic losses. China's position in global supply chains was further solidified, especially as factories in Europe and the United States halted production, enabling China to meet global product demand. Although China's economy was in distress at the time, the global market's demand helped it avoid a severe recession temporarily. However, this situation did not last long. As the pandemic subsided, other countries gradually resumed production, and China's unique advantage, maintaining production during global shutdowns, quickly lost its significance. Third stage, post-pandemic challenges and overcapacity. Entering 2023, as the global economy gradually recovered, China's exports began to decline, particularly due to the overcapacity accumulated during the pandemic, which became difficult to absorb as global demand rebounded. The Chinese government adopted measures such as ramping up production and clearing inventory at low prices to maintain market share. However, this strategy, which came at the expense of domestic demand, failed to address the root issue of overcapacity. To sustain high export volumes, China resorted to cutting costs and suppressing labor wages, further exacerbating the phenomenon of involution, intense internal competition. At this stage, Xi Jinping appeared to lack timely policy adjustments, resulting in an over-reliance on exports. Domestic consumption growth could not keep pace with the rapid increase in production capacity, leading to severe overcapacity issues. Meanwhile, other countries began to respond by raising tariff barriers, gradually eroding China's low-price advantage. Fourth stage, the tariff era and global economic containment. As global tariff policies against China intensified, starting in 2024, multiple countries began imposing heavy taxes on Chinese electric vehicles and other goods, significantly altering the global trade landscape. China's strategy of relying on price competition to maintain market share faced unprecedented resistance. In 2024, the World Trade Organization recorded nearly 200 lawsuits against China, mostly initiated by developing countries. This series of trade disputes severely tested China's exports, further intensifying domestic economic pressures. By 2025, the tariff war between China and the United States escalated, with the U.S. imposing tariffs as high as 145% and China retaliating with 125% tariffs. China's entire manufacturing sector reeled, plunging into a severe recession. In response to rising global tariffs, Xi Jinping proposed stimulating consumption through government subsidies, attempting to boost domestic demand with subsidies for household appliances and electric vehicles. However, whether such subsidies can address deep-seated economic issues remains questionable. China's overcapacity problem requires profound economic reforms rather than reliance on temporary stimulus measures. Reflection on Xi Jinping's economic strategies. Toronto Square Face noted that reviewing Xi Jinping's economic policies, from common prosperity to an over-reliance on exports to persisting with low-price competition amid escalating global tariffs, Xi's economic decisions have largely failed to address China's deep-rooted economic problems. While some policies temporarily alleviated economic pressures in the short term, they have not resolved core issues in the long run. China's economic woes did not emerge overnight but are the result of structural problems accumulated over years. Although Xi Jinping's policies have seen some adjustments, they lack the far-reaching and systematic strategic vision needed to tackle global competition and domestic economic involution. If China's economic downturn is likened to an illness, Xi Jinping is akin to a doctor who has misdiagnosed the condition. While he has applied some symptomatic treatments, he has ultimately failed to cure the underlying disease. China's future economic development will depend on deeper reforms and strategic adjustments, rather than merely relying on singular subsidy policies or short-term, low-price competition strategies. Is Xi Jinping's era crumbling? Rumors claim that Zhang Youxia has mobilized troops to seal off Zhongnanhai and pressure Xi to relinquish power. Let's dive in. On April 30th, the Chinese Communist Party's 14th National People's Congress Standing Committee stripped Central Military Commission member Admiral Miao Hua of his role as an NPC deputy. This follows a dramatic internal purge that insiders say points to Xi Jinping losing control of the military. The storm broke last November when the Defense Ministry confirmed Miao was under investigation. But the full picture emerged on April 24th, when former journalist Zhao Lanjian leaked a top-secret military briefing. It accused Miao Hua and Central Military Commission Vice Chair He Weidong of forming a political faction, undermining the commission's authority, corrupting officers, and scheming to control military appointments before the 2027 Party Congress. A two-page internal document circulated across the military on April 17th called their actions treachery masked as loyalty, crimes beyond forgiveness. 1.5 pages zeroed in on Miao with language described as shockingly harsh. The report also alleged a web of bribery, cronyism, and power for money deals, with Miao reportedly pocketing over 1 billion yuan, roughly $140 million, and he raking in 600 million yuan, about $85 million. Analysts now speculate Xi tried to use Miao to stage a coup and regain military control, a plan that's backfired spectacularly. Commentator Tang Jingyuan says Miao's ouster signals formal charges are coming and confirms Miao, not he, was the ringleader. At this year's two sessions, top General Zhang Youxia reportedly snubbed Xi in public, a bold sign of their rift. As Tang put it, the mask is off. The fight is out in the open. China's military power is shifting fast. On his YouTube channel, Muyang Show, commentator Li Muyang called the charge of forming a political clique a direct challenge to the party's top brass. He said, Muyang Hua's fall is just the start. Now everyone's watching He Weidong, the man Miao pushed into the spotlight. When will his investigation go public? Australia-based influencer Jiang Wangjang dropped bombshell claims, alleging Miao not only built a rival faction and disrupted the military, but also let his family profit from his clout. Jiang cited unverified reports that Military Discipline Inspection Commission Secretary Zhang Shengmin could replace Miao as director of the Central Military Commission's Political Work Department, while Wang Renhua, head of the Political and Legal Affairs Commission, might take Zhang Shengmin's current role. These shifts are unconfirmed, but they're raising red flags and we're keeping a close eye. Li Muyang tied it all together, pointing out that Zhang Shengmin and Wang Renhua are close allies of Zhang Youxia, a military heavyweight. Zhang Shengmin hails from the Rocket Force, which had ties to the Central Military Commission's General Equipment Department. The Rocket Force's recent purge likely pulled Zhang Shengmin into Zhang Youxia's orbit. Wang Renhua's connection is even tighter. From 2012 to 2017, when Zhang Youxia ran the General Equipment Department, and later the Equipment Development Department, Wang held key roles, including director of the Security Department's Political Department, head of the Jiuquan Launch Center's Political Department, and director of the Army Equipment Research and Procurement Department's Political Department. Li said, "These overlapping roles show Wang and Zhang Youxia go way back." Li added, "If Zhang Shengmin and Wang Renhua get promoted, it's a clear sign Zhang Youxia is positioning his allies to dismantle Xi Jinping's hold on power." The drama escalates with reports that Zhang Youxia is taking no chances. Sources claim he travels with a heavy security detail, personally controlling key access points. Li revealed, every time he enters Zhongnanhai, he alerts the Central Security Bureau. The military has sealed off all escape routes from Zhongnanhai. If anyone threatens him, no top official in Beijing is getting out. Right now, nobody dares touch Zhang Youxia. Li explained, If Zhang Youxia has stripped Xi of military control, he'd brace for a counterattack. A large security entourage is standard in the Communist Party's cutthroat political arena, where one misstep could mean total ruin. But the most stunning claim comes from a leaked document, allegedly from a March 31st Politburo meeting, shared with Li Muyang by a netizen. It calls for a blunt reassessment of the Cultural Revolution's disasters and praises the third plenary session of the 11th Central Committee's historic pivot. It lauds the Party Central Committee's work in strengthening discipline, fighting poverty, and improving governance over a certain period, but admits missteps in social governance, public opinion, and economic strategies that have slowed national progress. The document demands relentlessly advancing reform and opening up as China's defining path and pushes for strengthening democratic centralism and building a nation rooted in the rule of law. Li Muyang didn't hold back, saying, "If this document is real, it signals Xi Jinping's political downfall. Xi has been knocked out. The resolution only mentions the Party Central Committee, not Xi's name, his core status, or his 2 establishes and 2 safeguards." Even more telling, Xi's decade of rule is almost entirely rejected without a shred of praise. "This year, many people will die," a mainland Chinese blogger bluntly stated, caused by various viruses. Since January 2025, mainland China has been grappling with outbreaks of COVID-19, influenza, and other viruses, with unverified reports of sudden deaths piling up. On February 28th, a Douyin blogger known as Brother Lee Talks posted a stark video warning. "In 2025, many will die worldwide, not from war, but from viruses." He made it clear, this is global, not just one country. More will die than in wars. His advice? Wash your hands often and wear masks year-round. Comments from netizens in Guizhou, Jilin, and Shanxi backed him up, saying, "In my town, deaths are frequent, even among people in their 40s. We see only death, no births." On April 25th, another blogger, Taiyuan by Liji founder, shared a grim observation. "We're losing more post-80s and post-90s, he said. Another young person died suddenly. Healthy one moment, gone the next. Records show many in their 30s and 40s, mostly from heart attacks." Commenters echoed his concerns, painting a troubling picture. Netizens from Hunan, Guangdong, and Shandong shared heartbreaking stories. One wrote, "A 25-year-old in our community, an only child, tested positive, went to sleep, and never woke up. Unmarried." Some pointed out they all had multiple COVID vaccine shots, though no evidence directly links the vaccines to these deaths. In February, a viral claim spread online, alleging that by the end of 2024, the post-80s mortality rate hit 5.2%, meaning 1 in 20 has died. Chinese authorities quickly debunked it, but social media chatter about young people dying suddenly continues to grow, fueling unease. On April 29th, a video from Clean World's Third Eye raised even bigger questions. It showed bloggers exploring deserted villages and towns across China, with new graves cropping up everywhere in rural areas. They asked, "No one in cities? No one in villages? Does China still have 1.4 billion people?" The video claimed multiple viruses are spreading, with crematoriums overwhelmed and many dying. Yet, it alleged the Chinese Communist Party is hiding the true scope of the crisis. Some analysts suggest the government is suppressing the death toll to avoid sparking social unrest. But just how many have died in China during the pandemic? Based on official Chinese data, XAI's Grok 3 estimates 150 to 200 million people may be unaccounted for. An unverified figure that raises serious questions. On January 15, 2023, Falun Dafa founder Master Li Hongji stated, "For over 3 years, the CCP has covered up the pandemic. China has lost 400 million lives, and by this wave's end, 500 million will die." Thank you for watching New Century. If you believe in honest journalism and independent thinking, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share your thoughts. Until next time, stay informed, stay thoughtful, and take care.